Dr. Robert Kiltz, for those that don't know you, can we have a little introduction?
Well, I'm just another fellow human being on the quest to be healthy. And as a physician, I found out that my advice as a physician was aiding in my and other human beings' unhealthiness. And I learned about paleo, keto, and then about 15 years ago, almost carnivore. And what better way to share health and wellness than being on social media, which is really the new healthcare menu.
Absolutely, Rich.
What would you like me to hit Robert Kiltz with? I know we had you on. Yes, welcome back, because we had you on this time last year. Wow, how quickly 12 months has gone.
It's the measure of these dates. It's like every appointment I have on an annual basis, I decided to cancel them all because between last one and this one, it's just way too short. But
yeah,
it is a short life, and we want to do the very best to make ourselves the most healthy. And just in finishing up, as a fertility physician, I've learned that we're all suffering from the improper human diet for way too long, and I've just been so enthused by the environment of both the keto world, the carnivore world, but the general health and wellness that people are talking about online has been a game changer. I can only see so many patients in a day, but we can touch infinite people in this modality. So I think this is absolutely, and I encourage anyone who's experienced the benefits of both keto world and the carnivore world, the faith world and the fitness world, to share your story, because I think that's one of the most important things we can all do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So being the fertility expert, if any of you guys have any fertility questions, pop them in the chat. Stephen with his Hawkeye is on the mark there.
I do have a question that
there we are.
been posed. Yeah, which I think we might be able to get Robert to answer here, because it's sort of around female issues. Nadine was asking, still haven't been able to get a definitive commentary on whether or not the hormones in dairy pose a danger for women's breast tissue.
Well, I imagine women, human beings like other mammals, have hormones, and so when you eat another animal, it has some hormones inside of it that you're going to consume some of those. Most of us are looking for regenerative and well cared for animals that aren't given all these external hormones or antibiotics or other substances that may be harmful to them and possibly to us. But I don't think that's our biggest problem. Plants are our biggest problem, because plants also contain hormones, by the way, because the phytoestrogens, androgens, and the progestins, along with many other chemicals. Essentially, the birth control pill, which contains estrogen and progesterone, was developed from plants. So I would say that we have far worse chemicals and hormones in the plants we consume than you're getting in the beautiful nutrient-dense animal products that you consume.
Cool. Sorry, Richard, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry. It's just that question's been hanging around.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I'd just like to put an anecdote in there. A colleague of mine, or now a friend who came to me as a client initially, he reported recently that his sister, and I'm sure he's listening to this, if he is, feel free to comment in, had tried IVF for, I think it was something like 9 years unsuccessfully. He passed on words of wisdom from Stephen and I's lives that we do, as you know, every Sunday on YouTube. She made these changes begrudgingly after being worn down for a long time, because it does take a long time for us to wake up to these suggestions. 1 year after living a carnivore lifestyle, she's now pregnant after 9 years of paying IVF and not being successful. Have you got anything to add to this? I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense. But from a hormonal perspective, have you got any insight in regards to the mechanisms behind this?
Inflammation is the cause of all disease. Inflammation is primarily caused by plant sugars plant antigens, lectins, oxalate phytates, and more. Plant chemicals, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, are all plant chemicals. And then the fermentation of those plants in your gut via the microbes that are not good for you, by the way. And so they basically damaged every cell of your body. And last I looked, your ovaries and your testicles are cellular components, organs of your body that get damaged. So it's not per se the hormones. Everyone focuses on hormones, but it's actually the cells that either make the hormones or the cells that are affected by the hormones and having the receptors there. But basically, the damage isn't to your hormones, it's to your cells that either produce or are the receptors for those hormones or many other functions. Again, a sperm that can't move becomes an infertile sperm. An egg that can't be released becomes an inadequate egg. You might have the eggs in the sperm, but it's not working. So ultimately, think of inflammation as the global cause of all disease. Infertility is just another disease. It is actually the most important thing that we're all alive for, because all this work we do on YouTube is about showing ourselves off. It's the feathers, the colors, the sounds, the things that we all use to attract the mates, because there's nothing more important than attracting a mate and reproducing in life, because that's the prima need of the universe, is to reproduce. And I see exactly that story. I have so many of my clients that many of them have never seen me. They hear these stories online. They go keto or carnivore, and they suddenly better sperm, better eggs, better embryos, better environment. They conceive and deliver a baby, even after many failed IVF cycles. At CNY Fertility, my job is affordability, access, quality, and integration. So I am a standard medical doctor. I perform lots of surgeries and lots of IVF and those sort of things. But if I can help you clear the inflammation and heal yourself by these simple ideas of keto carnivore, which is kind of crazy, and it works.
Yeah.
Okay, got a great question from Sarah here. 30-year-old on carnivore and looking to get pregnant in the future. Would you still recommend a prenatal supplement? And if so, what nutrients?
Liver, organ meats, eat the fatty meat. That likely is the only supplement you need, along with vitamin G, which is gratitude. I think faith is the most important part of it. I am having a baby in the future. Of course you are. That's the reason we're all alive. And what prenatal supplement? Faith first. Thank you, God, Lord, creator, for the day, whatever your gratitude of that thing is, and enjoy the life you're living, and carnivore. But again, organ meats, I think, are important, because likely we utilize the organ meats and the fat. And I would say raw fat over cooked fat. And even raw organ meats over cooked organ meats are probably have more minerals and vitamins that your body needs: copper, magnesium, zinc, iron, just to name a few. But I don't focus on any particular supplement personally. We do sell an organ meat supplement for those people that don't want to take them. I think that they're something we did consume, and I think they'll help tremendously.
Yeah.
Excellent. Just rattling through some questions, Richard, if that's all right with Robert as well. People have been dying to speak to you, mate.
Don't die.
Rachel has a...
Yeah.
Rachel says, I have a female issue. Carnivore since early Feb. Had one normal cycle in February and then no period since. Any idea what would cause this, and what can I do to reverse it? Before carnivore, it was regular.
Well, I don't know Rachel's age or other predisposing factors that she may have been living with for many years. So, it could be that you've already done the damage. It's caused damage to your hypothalamus, the brain areas, the pituitary, and then the adrenal ovarian axis, which are important communicating cellular structures that really define normal hormonal production and ovulation. Those are factors. But carnivore, I don't know what carnivore means. I hear people on carnivore eating fruits. That's not carnivore. And carnivore is fatty meat. It's not lean meat. I eat tenderloin and chicken and fish. There's no fat there. The fat is the most important thing to eat, because it contains every mineral, every vitamin, every amino acid, every fatty acid, and every simple sugar your body requires. And it's fat that kills the microbes in the gut, which are not good for you, by the way, and allows the glycocalyx and the glycobiome to heal. So I would say that either the damage was done or your age is already past when that tip over period of going into menopause. But I'd say a lot of it is lean meat is not good for you. Fatty meat, eat less frequently. And if you're over exercising or too skinny, that's not good either.
Yeah, just to add to that really quickly, fantastic there, Robert. I think that a lot of women do extended fasting, which causes issues in regards to cortisol as well. That can cause problems with menstrual cycles. So don't over fast. And
can I comment about fasting? If you have fat on your body, you can fast long, because the adipose tissue in our body contains every mineral, vitamin, amino acid, simple sugar, and fatty acid. We're built to bring on fat, store it, and we're likely built to go a lot of time without eating, because you and I don't go out and hunt and gather. It's provided for us in abundant ways. So again, we didn't purposely fast. It was seasonality and things like that. So that's where I differ a little bit. Fasting to me is one of the most amazing things you can do, because when you empty the gut, see that too many people are living with a gut full of food. The gut full of food is mostly plants and protein, which are both fermenting in the gut, and they both go to the liver via insulin to convert it to fat. So, again, I think fasting is one of the most amazing things you can do. We're actually doing a 5 to 7 day fast starting tomorrow, and I do it twice a year. I think fasting is food freedom. And last I looked, I've seen no one drop dead from fasting as long as they had enough fat on their body. And so
I agree.
That's, again, I apologize for jumping in there, but
no, spot on. I completely agree. I think that sometimes people come into this with the wrong mentality and being uneducated in regards to fasting. I think fasting, if we look at the benefits of fasting, we benefit for autophagy, mitophagy, brown fat activation, lipolysis, insulin sensitivity. All of these are elicited when we are ketogenic anyway. But I think sometimes people will over fast. I fast. So when people ask me, do I fast? And I mentioned this earlier, I say no, but I usually go 18 hours without eating, but I eat intuitively. I eat when I'm hungry. If I'm not hungry, I don't eat. I don't force a fast. And what I find from female clients in particular is that they're in this pursuit for this super fast weight loss. They'll over fast, and now their bodies are not, achieving and receiving the nutrients that they need. So I just say, I'm a big fan of fasting, but just be careful with fasting. Fats and proteins make every hormone, every cell in the body, and I think this is where we need the proteins and the fats, and this is why living a carnivore or animal-based lifestyle allows us to thrive. But
well, interesting, LDL. VLDL, HDL are adipocytes circulating in the bloodstream. If you think about it, okay, they contain amino acids, simple sugars, and fatty acids, cholesterol, and all the minerals and vitamins. So, in actuality, the adipose tissue we store in our body is the nutrient rich cells of our body. They are critical. Obesity causes no disease. It's simply the storage. So you can go days, weeks, and potentially months without eating, including hibernating and nesting. Many animals do not eat for months and months and months because they built up their fat stores. And again, inside that adipocyte are amino acids. And inside the adipocytes are simple sugars, glycans, and are the fatty acids and cholesterols and the minerals and vitamins. Your body is just saying like, okay, great. When you're in ketosis, you basically are simply reduce the stomach contents to near zero. Zero is probably the best. Now you're not feeding the sugars and the amino acids, which are basically they convert to sugar in the liver, then fat in the liver via insulin, which is the critical part of our liver and survival. So I just think, again, when the problem is that food is so abundant and the highly palatable and foods, meaning the hyperphagic foods are there because sugars, fruit, were available at certain times of the year, but only in limited amounts. And if you didn't eat them all very quickly, you'd lose the opportunity to build the fat so you can go through your nesting time. Bears will mate with a bear, and they will fertilize an egg, but that egg will not implant until that bear is fat enough. And then they cannot survive, nor will they build the babies, because they're going to hibernate. They lose no muscle mass, no bone mass. They lose only adipose cells. So I think we're misaligned in obesity. Adipose tissue is actually the very best thing you carry on your body, which is built for our evolution, which basically you and I didn't have the quick stops, the quick deliveries and all that stuff.
Advocacy groups are making a difference, not just for individual patients and families. They are also shaping the healthcare landscape for all of us. But who are these people fighting for patients' rights? What strategies lead to success? And what pitfalls should be avoided? Welcome to Patient Advocacy Voices. I'm your host, Eric Racine. Join me on a journey to uncover the hidden stories of these remarkable champions for patients. If you're passionate about advocating for patients and want to accelerate your own efforts for the patients you serve, subscribe now to Patient Advocacy Voices.
Spot on.
Absolutely. So we're just going to say, what time is it where you are, Robert? Because...
Well, I just got back from Nice, France.
Right.
I got in like last night about 9 p.m. and I was up since 6 a.m. Nice time. So I did get my 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. I got my 7 hours, which is unusual for me. I use 6 hours. So it's about 6, what is it right now? 6:17 in the morning.
That's fabulous.
Wow.
And you are one of the most brilliantly active listeners I've ever seen. I can see your brain absorbing information and questions, and you can't wait to outpour it, which is nice.
I just want to tell everyone that Richard Smith and Coach Stephen are two of the most inspiring human beings in the keto carnivore space, the fitness space, and I watch them religiously, and I think that the more we gain together, the better. Appreciate you guys.
Way too kind. And right back at you also. Right back at you also.
And the check's in the post. So, right. That's brilliant. So somebody's put a comment here, which is Dr. Kiltz is the only, this isn't true, but this is how they're seeing it, is the only person to talk about the vital glycocalyx. So why do you think that glycoproteins and glycosylation is the thing you're a little bit known for now, as well as fertility?
Well, my sister Marianne died of diabetes. And then I read a book called The World Turned Upside Down by Richard David Feynman. And basically it said that glucose is never required in our diet. Sugar's not required. So wait a minute, but sugar's our energy, but it's not required in our diet. And then I said, well, if sugar is not our energy, then what is sugar for? Well, we know that in ketosis, you burn fat. Well, then I said, well, you mean you burn sugar sometimes and then fat other times? What if that is not true? What if we only utilize acetyl-CoA from fatty acids and we never use glucose for energy? Glucose, I said, well, we know glucose glycates, rusts, so it's very bad for us. So if I never eat it and I keep my glucose low, I'll be healthier. Well, then what's glucose for? Well, I never realized, I knew about glycosylation, which is the post-translational modification of a protein by adding a sugar to it to give it its proper shape, charge, pH, whether it dissolves in water or not, and its proper function. And so we're simply glycating because of our excess sugars and proteins, by the way, that are damaging our body. And so because of my sister's death and my best friend Dave Kilmer's death from medical school, he died at 52 of cancer. And I read the book by Thomas Seyfried and Otto Warburg's work on basically glucose is a glycating agent that causes cancer. But we talk about, we'll sugars are burns energy, and then you switch over and burn fat. But that didn't make sense to me. And when I learned about the glycocalyx and glycobiome, and that basically there's a mucopolysaccharide layer, a sugar layer, that lines every cell of your body. It's actually the barcode. It says, come on in or stay out. You could not live without the sugars in the glycocalyx. And so we can live without eating plants, which basically all break down to sugar. And protein, by the way, is glucogenic or ketogenic. Basically, they both amino acids are sugar-like. And that's the part we're not talking about when it comes to proteins and amino acids. We actually have a very small requirement for amino acids because they're in the adipose tissue we eat. So why me? I don't know. I'm a crazy man a little bit. And in this world of fertility, talking about keto or a carnivore is kind of like, ooh, can't do that. But like everything else, my job as a physician, I get paid a lot of money to help people to heal themselves, hopefully, or we help them in either surgeries or drugs, dissections, all sorts of things. And I was like, well, but the reason I went into medicine was my sister Marianne and just seeing the suffering and my parents and many others. And so my mission as a physician is to dig deep and ask questions and not even believe what we say. It's like, wait a minute, are you guys doing what you're talking about? We don't. But yeah, the glycocalyx, the glycobiome is the bomb.
Yeah. And I think, this is this thing about not questioning science, which is something that's a terrible phrase that's been around for the last 4 years. If you don't question science, it's not science. It's just, we've got to keep asking questions.
And we have to question ourselves too, because if we chastise the standard world for every time someone says we need another scientific study, I'm like, isn't that how we got ourselves into this problem? Another scientific study? I mean, it really is pretty simple. This is thousands of years old, this story. We don't need another study that says, oh, carnivore works. Well, faith, fasting. Again, carnivore works because it minimizes or eliminates the plant toxins. Okay? That's really the simple part of the story. You can live as a vegetarian pretty long and pretty healthy if you, in my opinion, you do more fasting and you add more fat. You cook the carbs well. When you cook a plant, you kill the microbes, bacteria, yeast, and viruses, and other microbes are all over the plant. You simplify the sugar. Simple sugars go to the liver faster and are converted to fat faster in order to lower your sugar levels in your bloodstream. That's really what's so important in this.
Great. And we got another fertility-based question, which is understandable. Do breastfeeding women on a carnivore diet need to eat more, increase calories to maintain milk supply?
Well, how many calories if you're thriving and surviving, your baby's thriving and surviving, you're likely getting enough calories. I mean, we know one of the biggest problems in life is losing weight, right? That's the biggest problem. People can't lose weight without a drug, a doctor dissection, or some crazy diet. And so I don't think lack of calories is our biggest problem. And breastfeeding, again, on carnivore is like the very best thing. Fatty meat. The breast tissue is made of fat. And remember, adipose tissue contains every mineral, vitamin, building block of your baby and your body. So I think that, if you're losing too much weight, eat more fat. If you're gaining too much weight and you're either move a little bit more or eat a little bit less. But, historically, we didn't get advice from a doctor or a dietitian. We just lived on the land of life. And eating a meal a day, to me, suffices for most of us. But the majority of the food we eat today is low fat, and that's one of the problems. We're getting a lot of protein and plant sugars, which are glycating, damaging our gut, so that our gut absorption is diminished, and it damaged that glycocalyx. So I would say that, again, if your baby's not thriving and not getting good breast milk, that's where you might seek out a nutritional consultant on keto carnivore.
Yeah, great. A few people talking about, we use the word calories. I don't believe in calories as such because I think different macronutrients do different things, but people understand the word calories. Like we could say more nutrients, we could say more mass of food, whatever. So anyway.
Well, a calorie, I mean, let's just call it a calorie, okay? So meaning that, of course, there's lots of definitions of lots of things, but you want to increase your caloric intake, which is your energy in, or reduce your energy expenditure in order to gain more weight, if that's what you want to do. But again, you're right. If your glycocalyx is damaged, your absorption of those nutrients or the loss of nutrients is going to be affected by that. So, but you're right. There's a scientific definition of a calorie, but I think in general, we know what things have higher caloric intake, which are lower caloric intake, but nothing is exact as we think it is.
No, and I've got another question here, which is really broad. Why do women get hot flushes in menopause, and how can you lessen them?
I don't know that answer, but there's a thermogenic effect of inflammation that affects our natural thermogenic set point, and but it's likely related to inflammation of those centers that cause that. And fat is one of the best things you can do. To eat fat, eat adipose tissue, eat butter, eat raw is the very best thing. I'm not a milk fan, by the way, so I don't push milk. I think a little bit of cream or butter, but mostly animal fat, and uncooked animal fat is better than the rendered stuff, in my opinion. I think those will help. Look at the Elizabeth Bright, some others out there talk about it, but essentially, if you live long enough, and depending on the inflammatory state of your body, some people are going to get more hot flashes than others that are going to last longer than others. And for the reason is we don't know exactly why some people more so than others. But I think when you reduce inflammation, you add more fat, and you get out in nature, sunlight. I love the cold water work, and I love the warm water work. Weights, walking, and wagyu, fatty steak, and meditation, prayer, and acupuncture, and chiropractic. I mean, there's some things that you can do, but sunlight, work out. I think that's really important. I'm not a big fan of, quote, exercise. Excessive exercise can be harmful, but you got to move in life. And the more you participate in life and you're doing something, get your mind off of the things that are going on in your body. And sometimes, wow, I didn't even notice it's gone.
Cool. DD, strict carnivore, chafee style, plus extra cold butter, 4 months, fit healthy, on HRT, post-menopause, 4 years, trying to wean off estradiol patch and progesterone, but hot flushes come back. Any advice? So it's sort of covered that a little bit there.
Pull it. You can go to like a patch every other day, a patch of 3 days, every 5 days, every 7 days, push it out and out and out, or you just rip the thing off, because it's going to be hardship, but it's kind of like learning to run a marathon. It's going to be hard. When I'm sure you guys both know that through hardship, you build a strong ship, and I know you can do it. It's like people don't die of hypoglycemia unless they're taking a drug or they got a tumor, by the way. So this idea that I'm hypoglycemic, I'm going to die, ain't true. And you're going to be fine even when you go through those hot flashes and you push through them. But it's like, get out in nature, go out sunlight, do a workout, and hang out with some good friends that can push you along.
Yeah. You mentioned hypoglycemia there, and one of the things that's a big sort of issue at the moment, it's not something I've bought into, to be honest, is people worried about insulin suppression. Because most people that worry about that, when I ask them, how are you feeling? They have low insulin, Robert. There's this term, insulin suppression. We can't produce insulin. And I'm like, well, it's on your blood test and you're fine and fit and healthy. Have you heard anything about this?
Well, yes. And I do my 5-day fast. My glucose is 50 and my insulin is less than 2. And I feel fine. I'm doing my workout. I'm doing my normal stuff. Okay. And so I think that once again, man, I'm feeling shaky and I'm feeling a little dizzy and lightheaded. I must be hypoglycemic. I go grab myself some sugar, I pound it down, and then sugar stimulates insulin because insulin's job is to convert sugars and amino acids in the liver to fat. That's all it is. And so, but I have heard about it. Again, we have psychologically misinformed humanity to believe in incorrect. It's called propaganda. And, it's like, oh, I need some sugar. Even in my operating rooms, in my surgery centers, my nurses are always grabbing for apple juice and giving crackers. And I'm like, I'm not there all the time. And so I can't control it 100%. But, that's what everyone believes.
Yep. Richard, you're very quiet. We need to unmute you. Unleash the Richard.
Just let in the fantastic doctor spread the good word.
God bless you, Richard. Thank you.
Well, come on, Rich. You must have some burning issues in your thread.
So, just a couple of other things to add to some of those things. Omega-3s and saturated fats are really important during menopause. Menopause mimics the last phase of a cycle, so progesterone and estrogen drop, which can lead to things like hot flushes. But we need, as Dr. Kiltz said, we need more saturated fats, omega-3s, selenium, coenzyme Q10. Eat as nature intended. All of these things are found in organ meats and animal proteins. It is quite literally as simple as that. Just get back to eating normal, and that it is.
It really is because ultimately we, again, no disrespect to anyone in this world of keto carnivore nutrition and all the science. I don't know what an omega-3, omega-6 fat is. I don't know what all these micronutrients really are, because ultimately I just know what my food is. And so we can simply eat the fatty meat, the butter, the eggs, and be healthier than anything. I'm a big fan of salt. I think salt is good for us. Find a really good nature's made salt. It's right from the beast itself, from the caves or wherever, the oceans. And I took a dip in the Mediterranean Sea, and it's so beautiful. I went for a nice walk run, and I do light stuff, and the sea was drawing me. I got in, and then afterwards I dried my suit in the bathroom, and there was salt all over the place. It was like I could scrape it off the drying bar. It was really cool. But I think you're right. Fat is anti-inflammation. When you eat it, most people, again, they're carnivore. They eat lean meat, or they cook their meat in a way that the fat is gone. I eat tremendous amount of fat. So when I was in Nice, I was like, can you bring me butter? Can melted butter. I mean, they couldn't. Finally, after 2 days of doing this, they gave me a big pitcher of butter melted that I poured off over a very good picanha with a lot of fat. And everyone else cuts the fat off. You must eat the fat to reduce inflammation in the gut. And the microbes are not good for us. The microbiome is actually a killer. People don't understand this. The bacteria, yeast, and viruses are the leading causes of disease in this world. And we propagate it as good, because it's there. But it's there because of a high plant protein-based diet, which are feeding the microbes, which are causing tooth decay, tonsillitis, esophagitis, and then every other disease in our body. If you feed a cow fat, it dies because it kills the microbes in the rumen, and they cannot live without the microbes in the rumen. So you and I think, the probiotics are good for us based on what science to actually sell you another drug and an idea that, question it. Would you put microbes in an open wound? You would not. And they're getting into our gut, they're getting into our bloodstream, and they're causing a tremendous amount of disease and damage.
Yeah, spot on.
I've never seen you so quiet, Richard, but I'm enjoying it. So I'm going to ask a very quick question. And again, we're going to fertility, obviously. Should you wait until breast milk supply has regulated before transitioning to carnivore?
Oh, you should transition to carnivore the moment you're taught. You hear about it and you're taught about it, because carnivore is our proper human diet, as our good friend Ken Berry has coined. I mean, it's our ancient. It's what we came out of the trees not to eat the grass, but to eat the grass eaters. We are hunters like wolves and lions, and we realized that making tools and weapons and hunting in a pack was the best way to find the very best food. And however we transitioned to that, we likely ate raw meat, raw animals, and raw fat. And how fast should you do it? I mean, as you're listening to this, you should go like, these guys are crazy, but I feel great, but maybe I can feel greater. And that's the part that changed my life. Again, I learned from people like yourselves. I was watching, I learned actually, some of my patients were getting pregnant on paleo diet maybe 20 years ago. And I'm like, what is this? You know, I was already into Atkins and Weight Watchers and all the excessive exercise and stuff. And then when I then learned, I met Marie Emmerich and I learned about keto concepts. And that's where the world turned upside down by Richard David Feynman. And then I said, okay. And then I met some guy who was like, you guys were ripped. And I said, I only eat meat and I don't exercise. And I'm like, that's for me. And because I was almost 15 years ago. And again, did it take me long? I was like, my favorite meals in the universe were always lamb and beef. I mean, that was my birthday party. You know, it's a gift. Here's some lamb chops or a T-bone steak. That's what I got. Now, I didn't realize they technically weren't fatty enough, and they were probably overcooked. But this is the most important thing you can do.
Excellent. Another comment here, and I think, sorry, go on, Robert, carry on.
No, you go that comment, but maybe it's the same one. I see iodine and magnesium deficiencies, and but go ahead, you get that one. I
think this is relevant. Anyone doing something about iodine? Elizabeth Bright talking about the importance of iodine. I mean, I talk about the importance of an iodine clearance test if you really, really want to know about. But yeah, go on, Robert, fire away.
Well, the chelating agents, plants get their nutrients from the soil and they chelate them. They bind to their roots and they bring them in. So when you eat plants, well, many of our plant products we eat are highly fibrous and they're non-digestible. So they're just chelating all the minerals and vitamins inside your gut and they're going right out the other end. So the very best source of getting iodine, magnesium, and all the minerals and vitamins is fatty meat and fatty organ meats. And so we basically, a plant-based diet is a chelating diet, meaning it grabs hold of those minerals and vitamins and takes them out the other end, and you're not the wiser. And then we're taking supplements. And then I'm wondering if all these extra supplements are doing the same thing, because if you're on a standard diet, it's just going out the other end, most of them anyway.
Yeah, just to add to that also, I think, what we eat, as you say, Robert, is very important. What we don't eat, I think, is equally as important. Cruciferous veg, broccoli, for example, high in a compound called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane, it competes for absorption at the thyroid for iodine. So these cruciferous veg can lead to goitrogens and hormonal issues. So, I mean, it's removing these plants is just as important, I think, as consuming the fats and the proteins.
Think about it. This is very good, Richard, what you just said. So goitrogenic foods, just look up goitrogenic foods. What is a goiter? A goiter is a damaged, enlarged thyroid gland. It's either hyperfunctional or hypofunctional, and it develops cysts, tumors, and cancers. It is one of the most commonly diagnosed problems on the planet, okay? And if you look up those plants which cause goiters, kale, asparagus, broccoli, cruciferous vegetables, peanuts, seeds and nuts, wine, all alcohols, coffee and teas, soy, all these things cause damage to your thyroid gland. Well, do they only cause damage to your thyroid gland? What if all those plants cause damage to every cell of your body? Brain, heart, liver, kidneys, spleen, bones, muscles. So if we already know the goitrogenic foods, how about tumorgenic or inflammatory foods which damage every single cell of your body? And we've just been lied to. Now, look, if you can't hunt the beast, you're going to eat what you can. Well, we're hunter-gatherers, but that's because hunting is not easy, right? go out there with your bare hands and go hunt down a bull, right? It's going to take you down. It kills many a lions, by the way. This is one of the most important things that people don't realize is that killing an animal and eating it is a hard thing. Here we are as human beings in our modern world, likely secondary to the fact that we were able to hunt and eat those things. Now, we can get a lot of calories from eating plants, but to eat plants, we had to process them properly, either cook them, ferment them, or many other ways, or soak them. But we're dying of those diseases to the secondary to the plant-based diet because we can live on them, but not the healthiest, and not without some risk of dying of diseases that we're like. And what's the answer? You go to your doctor. Why'd I get this, doctor? And you say, unlucky. We don't know, right?
Yep. Just for the audio people, what is the book you held up? What's the title of the book?
Well, I've got a couple of books. One is my Kiltz's Keto is Carnivore, and I do have a new one up, which is essentially a play on the baby's diet: bacon, eggs, butter, beef, Kiltz's ice cream, salt. Now, not all the time, by the way. And you can have a fruit from time to time, but not all the time. The same thing with a little ice cream. But our Babies for Babies book is out there. For some reason, let me see if I've got a copy. I don't have a copy right next to me here, but you just go to drkiltz.com or Amazon. You can see some of our books and ideas are out there, which just share this in a way that I hope it's easy for us, because Occam's razor says the simple answer is the one. The simpler, the better. And that's the most important part to this story. You don't have to make it hard. I also have a fertility book, kind of everything about fertility, similar talk. I mean, I'm always, I'll go right to diet and faster than anything. For me, it's always, what are you eating? I ask people I can go through their history. I ask them about their past medical history, their surgeries, and I have the adding pregnancies, how long they've been trying. And I ask them about their height and weight, and then their diet. And then the most common answer is, well, what do you eat? They eat clean and healthy and organic, which I don't even know what those are. Last I looked, do you need the beauty of ribeye steak or meat is like, you don't, there's no cleaning. So, it's the healthiest thing you could eat. And it has all the minerals and vitamins that you and your baby requires for health and wellness.
And the original fast food.
And
nothing.
It was fast. It was fast. It ran from you, and you had to work to get it. But when you got it, see, the interesting part is that plants are live organisms, by the way, just like all animals. All of the universe is alive. All right, a rock is alive. It's changing. Atomic particles that are vibrating, that are part of our existence. But basically, a plant is a live organism. They're easy to kill, and they want it that way because they control you. They seed you with their DNA, and they control you with their chemicals, right? How many people get hangry for a ribeye steak? We savor it. We're patient we know. We don't go crazy. People who eat plants, their brain goes crazy.
Yeah. On the subject of you saying fatty meat, a few people are asking about fish. What are your views on fish?
Well, fish stinks. It's it's the contaminated waters of the world. Humanity has toxified the waters of the world, and the fish are just getting contaminated. I don't consume fish of any significance or frequency. I will mainly do beef, some lamb, pork are my favorites. And that's what I think is one of the biggest problems in this world is that, and we're over grazing the fish population. But meat, pretty much we existed for thousands of years with our plot of land, our animals, and a small amount of plants. We focused on eating the meat. And I think eating that meat is really the fatty meat is that critical part of it. And eating meat is actually more affordable than people realize. You can get ground meat. You can buy a quarter cow, half a cow, or get yourself some land and raise your animals. That is one of the most important things. And eating less frequently is the best. And remember, the fat contains twice the calories of a protein or a plant carb, sugar. So you're getting more for less. I mean, go to the butcher and say, "Can I buy a bunch of fat?" And they pretty much want to give it to you.
Yeah, I did this week on Wednesday. So I went to my local butcher with a good friend of mine, Mikey Davis, who used to be a vegan. So he came to see me as a vegan 2 years ago. Very good Ironman athlete, and he was ranked in the top 50 in the UK. After seeing one of my talks on athletic performance, he came to see me after, and he started introducing beef liver and other animal proteins. He's now predominantly carnivore. So fantastic turnaround. Mikey last week won the European Championship. So he's gone from being 48 in UK to number 1 in Europe in 2 years of living the carnivore lifestyle. Anyway, that's just by the by. But we went to the butcher. So him and I are standing by the butcher counter, and a lady comes along and asks for some lamb, and she says, "Can you cut the fat off?" And no disrespect, but this lady was probably 4 times the size, if not 5 times the size of myself. And I just said, "Oh, do you mind, Chris, or Rich, whoever was there, do you mind if can I have that fat?" And she looked at me and said, "Why do you want the fat?" And I said, "Well, the fat is the most important thing." I said, it's incredibly important for hormonal production. I give the whole spiel. Anyway, she looked at me as if I was absolutely mental. And I explained to her that it was imperative to help with healthy living and weight loss. And I'm standing there, not obese, single figure body fat. You've got Mikey, this guy who was number 1 in Europe, super lean, ripped and shredded. And this woman just looked at me as if I was absolutely bonkers because I wanted the fat off the meat that she didn't want. But it's like the whole society is, what's the word I'm looking for? Blinkered, blindfolded. They are narrow-minded. They can't see what's right in front of them.
Well, propaganda. You're right. It's because we've been brainwashed. So that is a particular problem, because I still think the focus on protein is incorrect. It's fatty meat. That's what we should be eating, because we don't know. I don't know what protein is technically. If you look at a muscle cell, it's made of fat, right? A muscle cell is made of fat. It has amino acids in it, and it has some sugars, some glycans in it. But I'd say that you're absolutely 100% right. Brainwashed, bonkers, right, in the incorrect advice. But as you share it, this is what I think the beautiful story you're sharing is, see, I do not believe obesity is a disease. It's a state of the body. It's a state of the body that might be in your favor if there's a famine. Skinny is not in our favor in our historic environment. So I just don't believe that obesity is the cause of any disease. Obesity is a state we're meant to be in from time to time, depending on the environmental factors. But I would say fatty meat is what you want to eat. And if you focus on that, you'll get everything. But you're right. And so you got it for a discount, right?
I did. So in fact, he gave it to me for free. So I had this lump of fat for free, and it was lamb fat. It crisped up incredibly well, and absolutely delicious. But just to reiterate what you said,
is that what you call fat free? Sorry.
Well. But I'm actually recommending eat the fat raw, because when you cook it, denature the particles. And if you look at Pottinger's Cat's book, Pottinger's Cat, basically cooked meat and pasteurized milk was not good for the cat and its future generations. So we are damaging the minerals and vitamins and amino acids and simple sugars and fatty acids that are critical for our body, in my opinion. That's one of our problems, that if you eat the raw meat, but I do love it. I was at it when I was in Madrid last month, and in Madrid, the guy took the fat and he just left a bunch of fat on there. Really good. I was loving it, but he took a whole bunch of it, brought it back. He rendered it and brought it back to crispy little pieces, which is like
Yeah.
savory.
So I eat raw fat. I love crispy fat also, and I think this is a question that comes up quite often. Does cooking denature your food? Yes, it does. But not many people are going to eat raw beef like you and I and Steve would. And I think it's more important just to consume that protein and fat rather than not consuming it. But just to circle back really quickly to what you mentioned there about the fat being super important. Nature provides us with a combo of protein and fat. It gives us this perfectly packaged present. Almost every protein in nature comes with fat. And this is why, it's sort of the opposite of what you were just saying, really. But I think if we prioritize fat as nature, protein as nature intended, by default, we get these fatty cuts. And I always push the fatty cuts. One of my favorite cuts of beef is a chuck steak, because it's incredibly fatty. And it's one of the cheapest cuts. I don't know what the equivalent would be in the States, but it's incredibly cheap. It's half the price of rump, and it's absolutely fantastic. But nature gives us this perfectly packaged present of protein and fat. What do we do in our wisdom? We cut the fat off thinking we know better. Protein should always be consumed with fat. And coming back to the point you made with a cell, a standard mammalian cell, for example, the weight of a cell is around, and this is a ballpark figure, 70% water. Beyond that, from the remaining 30%, 18% is protein, 5% is lipid, and only 2% is polysaccharide. So the cell is predominantly protein and fat. So this is where we need to be consuming our foods, is proteins and fats.
The phospholipid bilayer is the bilayer, which is fat, of every membrane of your body. So I would say that the majority of our body is actually fat. Without it, you dissolve in water. We don't dissolve in water because we're fat cells. And so fat is the most fantastic thing you can have. And again, my bet is we're fat phobic. We should not be fat phobic.
Spot on.
Yeah, and I think if we can basically give positivity to all of us and realize the science is wrong. Obesity causes no disease. The cause of disease is a low-fat diet, which actually makes us fat. But while it's doing that, it inflames every cell of our body and causes the diseases that we're suffering from. And obese people happen to get more of those diseases because what did they eat in order to get fat? Lean meat, protein, and plants. And I think you're rock on, guys.
Yeah, spot on. I think I've lost my trail of thought there because Dr. Chafee's just messaged me on WhatsApp. So I was just lost my trail of thought. Apologies. But yeah, you're right. Fat is super important. I think that the fact that it's called fat is the problem. We really need to think of calling it something different, because we think the fat makes us fat. Fat does not make us fat. It is the giver of life, I believe, and one of the most important
adipose tissue, muscle tissue. Remember, if you look deeply, you'll understand that fat is the most important thing in our body. Without it, you're dead. Anorexics die fast. Obesity does not die fast. And if you look at someone who's 400 pounds walking around, their muscle strength and their bone strength is better than most. And so we actually have it wrong, and that their muscles are enlarged. Their muscles are big to carry that body, and their bone structure is the same as yours and mine. The only difference is their fuel tank is far greater. And as we teach people more towards one meal a day, to me, that's the very best way. And do some fasting, you'll then begin to get some power of not being, food addicted, right? The ability to say, I don't need it today. I'm good. I can go days without food and feel the very best.
Yeah. And it's one of the best times I've ever felt in my life was when I did an extended fast. The longest I fasted was 3 days. I've spoken to a good buddy of mine who I know that you know very well, Ben Azadi, and we went into the benefits of max autophagy. And I think we came to the conclusion that in a standard state, max autophagy can be reached within 5 days. But if we are ketogenic, we can achieve this in a lot shorter space of time. But
the glycobiome needs time to heal. As long as you're eating food, even if it's in the keto world or the carnivore world, you are still damaging your glycocalyx of the GI tract. So resting is what you want to allow it to do. Autophagy is always happening in your body. You're just less poisoned. So when you don't eat, you're actually reducing the damage. It's kind of like your car, right? The more miles you put on it, the more damage you'll get to the car. So you have to give it some time to rest and digest. Again, my bet is we are built, remember, your body is fueled only by fat. Your body is not fueled by sugars. Glucose is a glycosylating agent like mannose, sucrose, fucose, N-acetylglucose. I mean, there are 9 sugars that circulate in our body that are critical for the glycocalyx. And without it, you're dead. And so what's sugar for? Well, remember, if you eat food, amino acids and sugars, glucose levels rise, insulin levels rise, and then those levels drop because they're converted to fat in the liver in order for you to function normally.
Yeah, spot on.
Brilliant. Now, Richard, you're looking there as if Dr. Chafee wants to come in. Is that right?
Yeah, I just messaged Chafee on this. Apologies. Yeah, you were just asking a few questions. So I wasn't ignoring you, Dr. Kiltz. Apologies.
Bring in Anthony. Yeah. He's the man.
I think Dr. Kiltz has done so many lives. He knows what it's like when you've got messages from.
Oh, it's good.
I've got 3 screens in front of me with various things going on. So it's yeah.
No. But no, it's great, and I love how you continually put new information out there, Robert. I think it's just really interesting, and you're so not brave. Brave's not the wrong word, but you'll plough your own furrow. You won't listen to what everyone else is saying. You'll find out. I'm like that. If something doesn't make sense to me, I've got to know. It doesn't matter who told me. I mean, all the influencers out there that I love, if it doesn't make sense, then I've got to research it myself. I've got to come to my own conclusions and use my own experience and the experience of people I coach. So occasionally I say something and everyone's like, well, I've never heard that before. It's like, well, that's what I've come to. I've come to this conclusion and this is how I present it. And I love how you do that.
Well, the question is, what's the ideal anything? I mean, there really isn't a one ideal technically. I mean, you could live on a vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, pescatarian, carnivorian diet for a long time. My parents lived to 94. They're primarily Mediterraneans. My grandmother, 104. And there are many people that live a long time. And we're not claiming that carnivore means you're going to live longer. We have no idea how long you're going to live on this diet. But it is quite remarkable. And I went into medicine in order to heal and help people. And, really the world today is each and every human being is their own clinician. And the information is available online today, by the way. And that's the amazing part of this. It's all available. Why don't you bring on Anthony? Bring him on. Bring the man on.
There. No, he's not on there yet. But,
not there yet.
Again, this is the beauty of what you guys are doing. We in medicine, it's like, oh, where'd you get your MD degree? I mean, again, MD degrees doesn't matter. I've learned so much that's wrong. And again, even in the keto carnivore world, we all need to be open to maybe, again, autophagy. Does autophagy ever stop? It doesn't. When you're dead.
It doesn't, yeah.
It becomes less toxicity, less damage, because what causes damage? Oxidative stress, secondary to eating food. You can't, no matter what you do, you burn fuel in an engine, it's going to damage the engine. Same thing going on in our body, but maybe it's a way we can, live it a little bit better and longer. That's what I love.
Steve, I hope you don't mind me asking, but after last year's live, we invited Dr. Kiltz on to our Sunday live to give that presentation on the glycocalyx and glycoproteins and things. And it's one of the best presentations I've ever seen on it. Would you be willing to come back on sometime in the near future for that?
If you don't, I'm going to be upset. I love it.
Yeah, fantastic. It was a team, as long as that's okay with you, obviously.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I was trying to get at. I mean, I did a live Q&A without Richard, and somebody messaged and said, it was a little bit acidic, what their comment, and it said, my friend has just got over cancer and they're a strict vegan. What do you say to that? And I just went, that's great. That's great. And
think of plants as medicinal. Remember, the plants were the first way that we went around the globe, and the spices and plants. I mean, we went around the globe hunting for the healer, right? The fountain of youth, something to heal all. It's all, and most of the drugs today initially came from a plant-based scientific understanding, and nowadays we're able to make them synthetically, and that's the really big difference. But it doesn't. You can live a long time on a vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean diet also, but if you're sick, my bet is we could link it to glycation, oxidative damage, and stress, or some toxin. Heroin, cocaine, marijuana, nicotine, caffeine, alcohol. Remember, you're making alcohol in your gut because you ferment. Proteins are fermentable, and so is sugar. So the microbes are fermenting a high protein diet. So if you look carefully, amino acids are fermentable in our gut. That's why I do not recommend a high protein diet. I recommend a high fat diet, medium to low protein, and low to no plants.
Cool. Someone is asking, not for you, Robert, but for me. They're saying, Shane, we can't watch it all. Well, basically what's going to happen is once this 24-hour live stream is done, I sit sadly at that table over there and I cut it into 24-hour segments and I do all the timestamps, so it's all searchable. So if you want to see, the person that was on 8 a.m. answer about fiber, you'll be able to find it. All right. So yes, we're doing 24-hour live, but we'll cut it up in 1 hour chunks.
Tim mentions I'm in my 50s with 12% body fat and perfect healthy. Interesting. Again, I've seen so many people healthy then drop dead. Sarah Hallberg was one person who was healthy and drops dead in cancer. My best friend Dave was one. So the trouble is, this is where the plant-based problem comes in. Plants and proteins are glycating. They cause rust deep in our body at every cell level, and they cause all of our diseases, including cancer, dementia, depression, Alzheimer's, all these diseases. We just don't know when they're happening. And what we don't know is if you're primarily a fatty meat eater and you eat less frequently, we can't say yet whether or not you're not going to get these diseases. But certainly all my arthritis, psoriasis, migraines, kidney stones, bowel bleeding, hemorrhoids are gone. I've never felt better in my life. And so the focus should be on fat first, proteins, and then thirdly, sugars, and minimally. They're not our killers if you eat them small amounts infrequently, unless, and this is where plants come in, we have anaphylactic reactions to plants and shellfish and fish. But last I looked, ribeye steak, fatty ribeye steak, anaphylactic reactions, I've never seen it. The tick, again, is very, very, very rare.
Yeah, cool. Now, Anthony's got some tech issues, apparently. So, Dr. Kiltz, did you want to go, or are you okay to hang on for a couple of minutes to say hello to Anthony?
I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hey, I'm hanging out with you guys, whatever. I love hanging out with you and Anthony, and I'll just...
Oh, no, but it's great to have you. I mean, if we can lean on your expertise, it's fantastic. But you're also a really nice guy. And one of the things that happened last year, for people that don't know this, is Robert isn't saying all this just to sound good. He does really genuinely listen because he comments on things that we do. And the second part of our 24-hour, he dropped a comment in and I said, oh, look, come back on. Will you come back on? And he came straight back on. So generous with his time and a fantastic person, good information, a great Instagram, very inspirational. So, fantastic. Right. So I'm going to ask you one of the questions that we've got starred, if you don't mind. This is an interesting one for me as well, personally, because I had a calcium score assessed the other day. I know this isn't fertility, but I think you'll be interested in the whole talk. I had my calcium score assessed the other day, and the score was 1,114. I believe it should be a big fat 0. How do I get it down to 0? And for people that don't know what we're talking about, the coronary artery calcium scan is something that looks at your coronary arteries, and then it makes an estimate of how much calcification is in there. And I had that done before I was low fat, before I was keto, before I was carnivore, and mine was 639. Now, this little bit of story, because I know Robert likes stories, is just firstly to give you some context. So I was quite concerned about that, although I knew it was going to be high because of my high carb diet. And the consultant said to me, it is high, but you need some context here. The guy I just saw, it was 3,000. So these are just numbers. These are numbers. How do you get it to a big fat zero? Well, my wife had a big fat zero, and she came to the same consultancy with me, and she just avoided things like bread and potatoes, and she had fatty meat. She had, full English breakfast, all that without the toast, but she just had egg, sausage, and bacon. So when I met her, I can remember saying, because I was high carb when I met her, how can you eat that and be so lean and so fit? So the point being, yes, a big fat zero would be great. Mine was 639, yours was 1,000, and somebody else's was 3,000. But now Robert can point us in the right direction.
I've been carnivore for almost 15 years, and my father had heart disease. He lived to 94, though. He had bypass surgery at one point. And I get a Christmas present from a friend for a CAC score. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get this. I'm not a big test person because all testing has inaccuracies. I want everyone to know this. You are going to die. There is no test that's going to tell you you're going to die in 5 minutes or 5 years or 50 years. We don't know that. Mine was 680. My repeat was 700. And I go to my cardiologist. He's now my cardiologist, right? And he's a big biker, and he also had a high CAC score. And I do the treadmill test, the cardiac echo, and I'm flying colors. You're fine. He says goodbye. And although he was still like leaning towards a statin because I have high cholesterol, but he was okay when he heard I was a carnivore, and he wasn't pushing anything. But then I talked about doing a CT angiogram. I'd already talked to Phil Avadia. I get my CT angiogram, and I've got a minor narrowing of my circumflex, but everything else is wide open. So accordingly, I don't have any evidence of any significant heart disease. But it's no test in medicine, in science, is 100% accurate. There's a positive and negative predictability. There's false positive, false negatives. I don't care what it is. Science, testing in medicine is the biggest business in the world. So again, does this mean I'm not going to die of a heart attack in 5 days? Or no one knows that answer. We don't, right? And there have been people who have major narrowing who live a long time. So our ability to predict 100% is very poor. I stuck to carnivore. I'm probably just not going to ever get it tested again. And that's the very best thing for me.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Your support means the absolute world to me. And if you're enjoying this show, I've got a small favour to ask you. I'd be incredibly grateful if you would consider becoming a supporter and make a small monthly donation. Your contribution will really help to improve the show. I'll be able to improve the software, maybe put a few more episodes out, and do many things that I'm hoping to do in the future. Do them a lot quicker. So, it's a small monthly contribution. You can cancel at any time, and the link is in the show notes. Thanks very much for listening.